Hey students, we just finished a little video about concentration, and if you were paying really close attention, you may have noticed that I had something down below at the end of the video about solubility, and even the title of my last video at the top said solubility curves, but we didn't talk about that. So, what is solubility? Well, you know that if we make a solution, we dissolve something into something else. And the thing is, you can't keep dissolving stuff forever. Like if I start dumping sugar into my water here, eventually that sugar won't dissolve anymore. You can dissolve only so much sugar into this water. And when you get to that point where it won't dissolve anymore, then the new sugar that I add just sinks to the bottom and stays there and never dissolves. Okay? So that amount, when you think about, well, how much sugar could I dissolve in that water? That amount is called solubility. Okay? The solubility measures how much solute will dissolve in a given solvent. So what I would talk about is like, well, what is the solubility of sugar in water? How much sugar can I dissolve in a given volume of water? And that's temperature dependent. Maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't. When you heat up water, you can dissolve more in it. Okay? And when things are cold, in general, you can't dissolve as much. So the solubility goes down. So that's what solubility means. There's two words that come along with that. When I've gotten my sugar water completely full of sugar, I can't dissolve any more sugar in it, then we say that that is a saturated solution of sugar water. Okay? If I only put a little bit of sugar in there, then we say it's an unsaturated solution. It's not saturated yet. It's unsaturated. Okay? So there's the vocab. The basic idea here when you're talking about solubility is you'll get these things here called solubility curves. And it's a graph, and this graph shows the solubility of various different substances, in this case in water. So right now we're looking at the solubility of lots of different things. SO2, NH3, KClO3, these are all different types of like salt and different compounds. And we're going to dissolve them into H2O. We're going to dissolve them into water, okay? And we're seeing how many grams of these things can we dissolve if we have 100 grams of water. Okay, so you take about this much water, okay, figure out how much you can dissolve. Now you'll notice these lines are not straight, and they're not just dots on a graph, they're lines. And that's because, again, the solubility of things changes. And it depends what you're dissolving. In general, for something like KNO3, you see at low temperatures you cannot dissolve very much, but as you go up in temperature, the amount of KNO3 that you can dissolve keeps going up. Some compounds are the reverse, so just be aware of that. So here's an example question. How much KCl is going to dissolve in 100 grams of water at 40 degrees C? This 100 grams of water, we don't even need to pay attention to that. That's right here on the graph. I'm just restating what is already on the graph right there. Okay, so we're going to ignore that. What we really need is the 40 degrees C, and we need the KCl. Okay, so we find KCl. Here it is. We find 40 degrees Celsius. That's right there. And we're going to trace the line up from there. And we're going to stop when we get to the KCl line. And then we're going to trace that off to the left side of the graph. And it looks to me that about 40 grams of KCl will dissolve in that water at 40 degrees C. Okay, so 40 grams KCl. So basically, most of these questions are like that. You're just reading a graph. Okay, let's go ahead and erase that. We'll go to the next one. Now we're going to look at a different compound. We're going to look at HCl. Again, the 100 grams water, we can ignore that. That's already on the graph. And we're going to look at it at 50 degrees C. And this time the question is different. This time this thing says, I'm going to try to dissolve 50 grams of this in water at 50 degrees Celsius. And I want to know, is that going to work? Is the solution going to end up being saturated or unsaturated? So let's find HCl. Okay, here's HCl. And we're going to follow this line right here. Okay. And we're looking at 50 degrees Celsius. So again, I'm going to follow that line up right there to HCl. And then I'm going to trace over here to the left. And I see that number right there. It looks to be almost 60, so maybe 58. The graph tells me that I could dissolve 58 grams of HCl in that water. Okay. So what I'm going to write is the solubility is 58 grams. We're going to use our fancy new vocab words. 58 grams per 100 grams water at 50 degrees. So, could we dissolve 50 grams of HCl in that water? Yeah, we could. We could dissolve even more than that. We could go all the way up to 58. So this solution is unsaturated. Okay, we haven't reached the maximum yet. The maximum is 58 grams. We only dissolved 50. We're not up to 58 grams yet. So we're not saturated, we're unsaturated. Okay, simple as that. Hope it makes sense. Happy solution curving.